Welcome back. I'm Brian G, the EVOG, and you're joining me here in the cockpit of Mystique, our 2023 Fisker Ocean 1. Today is May 22nd, 2024, and we are 3 days shy of 7 months since our delivery on October 25th, 2023. As I've said before, it's been a pretty turbulent ride in the ocean. We've had some great highs, we've had great lows, we've seen choppiness on the ocean, and we've even had some ocean sickness. Most of that was the result of Fisker, the company, not necessarily this vehicle. So take that for what it's worth. Mystique, as she sits here right now, has a little over 5,300 miles in those 7 months of ownership. It's on version 2.0. It's in perfect working condition. We have no service issues or problems with the vehicle. It's really comfortable in terms of fitting my 6'6", 240 pound frame. And it's a ton of fun to drive, not to mention all the unique features that are in the vehicle. Having said all of that, this is my farewell journey on the ocean. We made the decision to get out of the ocean before Fisker sinks and ultimately drowns us along with them. So join me for this one while I tell you why and also tell you how we were able to get out of the ocean before drowning. All right, so let me begin by saying I'm sorry it's taken me this long to get this video published. I've had a lot going on, both in terms of life events and work and travel on both fronts. And I truly appreciate those of you in the community reaching out and asking me to go ahead and publish this follow-up. Now, in the last video, I acknowledged that buying the Fisker Ocean was an expensive, regrettable mistake. In this video, I'm going to quantify and let you guys know exactly how expensive the mistake was and get into the numbers. For those of you who've watched any of my content, you know that I've got a list of 5 reasons. Reason number 1 is the most recent 8Ks that were published the week of May 13th. Those were the last straws, if you will, that spurred me into action. Now, my buddy Adam did a great video walking you through everything you need to know about those two 8Ks, and so I'll leave a link to that down in the description. Having said that, there were 3 key things that were indicated in those last 2 8Ks. The first one talked about Fisker taking out what Adam called a payday loan, right? 3.5 million in funding from the same note holder, with the ability to take that all the way up to 7 million. But that loan was delivered at very high interest rates. We're talking 17% if they pay it on time and 25% if they don't. The terms on that loan also, in my opinion, foretold the end of Fisker on or about June 24th, I believe, was the date stipulated. This loan also prohibits Fisker from any sort of merger and makes clear that the note holder has to be paid in full if anyone were to buy the company out. But perhaps the most disturbing part of that loan, as spelled out in that 8K, was Fisker needs to deliver a liquidation plan to the note holder on or about May 23rd. As Adam indicated in his video, If that's not an indication of an impending bankruptcy, I don't know what is. So that 8K was pretty damning. The second 8K published on the same day was also concerning. That one simply indicated that the public accounting firm working with Fisker was quitting and would no longer be working with them. So that's reason number one. Reason number two are the plummeting values associated with our Fisker Oceans. This all started when Fisker made the decision to essentially fire sale the Oceans. It created a situation where the Extreme, that model which is closest to the Fisker Ocean 1 we owned, is selling for $37,500. So we're looking at 50 to 60% plus depreciation in less than 7 months. We're also seeing less than 30K offers for trade-in or purchase of the Fisker Ocean 1 in the marketplace right now. And we've got a number of automakers that simply will not take it. Carvana will not take the Fisker Ocean 1, or Fisker Ocean, doesn't matter the trim. They will not accept it as a trade or purchase. We know that Tesla will not take this vehicle. And we've also seen a number of dealerships simply not provide trade-in pricing for the Fisker Ocean. So the massive depreciation and plummeting prices are reason number two. Reason number three is what I consider to be the beginning of the end of service. I saw firsthand that our mobile techs were being reassigned essentially to go do the bidding of the note holder to work at those ADESA locations to get remaining inventory vehicles ready for shipment to dealers or sale direct to customers taking advantage of the fire sale. We also got notification via email that Fisker was ending its roadside assistance program, which quite frankly should never have been a thing anyway, right? Most of us have either AAA or roadside assistance via our insurance. The other thing that I think is pretty damning is probably too strong of a word, but I can't think of another, is the fact that very few dealers are actually delivering service. If those dealers aren't delivering service and mobile service techs are being reassigned to work on getting new vehicles ready, I think we're starting to see the beginning of the end of Fisker providing service. Reason number four for me is that EV repair shops like the Fisker King, like Gruber Motors, and Rich Rebuild's shop up here in New England, those are a non-starter for me. It means a long distance to go to get service, and it also means, I believe, high service fees. And that's if they're able to get parts in order to deliver service. Remember that the Fisker Ocean is or was manufactured in Europe, right? In Graz, Austria. The entire supply chain for parts for these vehicles is in Europe. And so for any of those enterprising EV repair shops to be able to deliver service of the Fisker Ocean, they need to get parts. And we know that Fisker only has a limited inventory of parts here in the US. So service, or beginning of the end of service, was reason number four. So a couple of other points on service before I get to my final reason as to why we got out of the ocean. The over the air software update process is somewhat of a black hole. And even though we see indications that we may be getting version 3.0, maybe even version 4.0, depending on the timing, given the number of layoffs that we've seen at Fisker, I just don't trust that those subsequent over the air updates are going to be really well fleshed out from a software testing and development standpoint. Part of my concern comes from my experience with version 2.0, where when I got version 2.0 over the air, the install took place, everything seemed to be fine, but I saw really concerning behavior in my vehicle in that the throttle response was gone. This directly impacted the drivability and the fun driving experience in the Fisker Ocean. And it was a pretty concerning situation that was created from that. So I was fortunate to get, our service tech to come out, uninstall what was installed over the air, and reinstall module by module manually version 2.0 in order to correct the problem that was created with that over-the-air software update. And so for me, the concern there obviously is that with version 3.0, potentially version 4.0 and others, I just don't know how fully vetted those will be from a software testing standpoint. Software is inherently going to have bugs in it. And if Fisker isn't providing service to address problems with that, I just don't want to find myself in that situation down the line. So the concerns around service is reason number 4. Reason number 5 is simply the fact that the Fisker Ocean was not our first nor our only EV. We've had and have several other EVs, fortunately, and so we know what a great EV looks like. Valkyrie, our 2023 Rivian R1T that I'm sitting in here, is the best EV we've ever owned, and I believe arguably one of the best ones currently on the market. The Fisker Ocean, as much as we enjoyed it and loved it, felt skittish and a little bit unstable given the amount of power that it has. I use the analogy of a wild bronco versus a well-trained thoroughbred. And so the difference in the experience there is that the powertrain, is as much fun as it was a little bit skittish. It wasn't as refined, if you will, as this vehicle or others out there in the marketplace. Now, our Fisker Ocean did have 360 miles of EPA certified range, but we had gotten to a point where we just didn't trust it for long road trips. Like for us, this trip from Maryland to Cape Cod and back is one that we do at least a half a dozen, if not more times every single year. And given the concerns with service and viability with Fisker, we just weren't going to be in a position to trust the Fisker Ocean on long road trips. So that range really didn't matter. And as I said, this vehicle that I'm in now, Valkyrie, is an absolute monster in terms of road tripping. We actually do see in conserve mode with this 340 miles of range off of a full charge. So those are the reasons why we made the decision to get out of the ocean before the Fisker ship sinks and drowns us with it. Those 5 reasons could probably be summarized with 3 questions that I would leave you guys with. And the first question is, Do you think the Fisker Ocean values will continue to decline? The answer to that question is a resounding yes. I do see that values will continue to decline. I do think that eventually there's going to be a floor. I just don't know how low that floor is, and I was not going to stick around to find out. All right, so that's question one. Question two is, do you think the Fisker Ocean will continue to be problem-free and not require service? The answer is a resounding no. It is not going to continue to be a situation where you don't need service for the vehicle, right? So that's question number two that I pose to myself, and I would pose to any of you in the community who are trying to determine your path forward. Question number three is, will it be easier to get service down the road? And again, for me, the answer to that question was no. I can see that my local service center in Owings Mills, Maryland, has been closed. I can see that my local mobile service tech, we had 4 of them in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and I believe we're down to 1 or 2. And again, they're not providing service to customers unless they're no longer reassigned to the Odessa site to get those cars ready to go to sale. So, given the answers to those questions, I really saw it as time for us to make an emergency evacuation and get out of the ocean. So that's what we did. And like any other emergency evacuation, you've got to take action quickly. You have to accept that you're going to have some losses in that process. But you've also got to try and get to a safe destination. And so that's what we did. The last thing I'll say is that when you know you've made a mistake, you have to move quickly to course correct, right? To make a change and learn from that mistake so that you can continue to move forward. What you don't want to do is double down on wrong, right? When you know that you're wrong and you've made a mistake, you don't double down on that. You change course and course correct. And so that's what we did. So let me shift gears now and talk to you about how we got out of the ocean. The how aspect of getting out of the ocean comes in 3 steps. Step 1 is to find a replacement vehicle that you can trade the ocean in towards and maximize the residual value that you get back in the form of a trade. With that, you've got to determine the right vehicle for your family, your use case, whether you want to get a new EV, but you've also got to find a vehicle that the dealer is motivated to sell, because when they're motivated, that is the point at which they're going to provide the greatest trade-in value for your Fisker Ocean. Step 2 is pretty simple. You've got to accept that we don't have any good options here. All of them are less than ideal. This is going to be a huge loss. It already is. And the size of that loss is going to increase the longer that we're in the ocean. So I'd say you don't want to wait, right? The longer you wait, the deeper you sink into the ocean. Step 3, and I'm saying this from my own experience, is to appreciate the ocean while you still have it. Enjoy it, then move on. All right, so now let's talk about the numbers and the quantification of just how much we lost in this process. There's 2 ways to look at this. I've got a simplified view and then a detailed view. The simplified view that we look at now is pretty straightforward. We've got the Fisker Ocean 1 that costs roughly $70K. You've got $1,200 on the towing package, and that brings our total to $71,200. Now, we were able to take advantage of the transition rule, and we're able to get $7,500 back. And so you take that off of the 71,200, and that brings us down to 63,700. You can also then minus the trade-in value that we were able to secure at $28,000. And so that puts us at a 44% residual value on our Fisker Ocean. So the total loss at that point comes up to $35,700. With our detailed view, it gives you a little bit more detail as the name would imply. So we start with the 63.7 after the federal tax credit that we received last year. You then look at the acquisition cost of our Fisker Ocean replacement at $37,500 minus the trade-in value of $28,000, and that gets us to $9,500. That is the trade difference. And so when you add that $9,500 back to our 63.7 pre-tax tags and fees cost, it gets us to a total loss of $73,200 pre-tax tags and fees. However, because we were in a position where I found a replacement vehicle at a great price, I had a friend, Adam, suggest that I take the VIN number for our Fisker Ocean replacement and put it into Kelley Blue Book. And so I did that. And even though we paid $37,500 for that vehicle, the Kelley Blue Book value at a trade-in level, not private sale, at a trade-in level was $40,000. And so that gets us to an even better position with our loss on the Fisker Ocean being $33,300. That's exactly half of 666, which I guess is somewhat fitting because it really feels like we made a deal with the devil, and this was our way out. So that's our why, our how, and the numbers for getting out of the ocean without drowning. No part of this process felt good. It was quite the opposite. It felt like a punch in the gut, or in a region even lower than that. But we got out of the ocean based on my belief that values will continue to decline. These vehicles are going to need service, and that's going to be increasingly difficult, if not impossible, to find, depending on where you are and parts availability and so on. And I don't believe that Fisker is going to get an investment or a buyout. In fact, I believe that bankruptcy is inevitable and imminent. I do think also that it's unlikely that Tata or a Chinese OEM is going to step in. It's an intriguing thought. I would love to see it happen, even though we're out of the ocean, but I find that to be highly unlikely. So at this point, I'm sure you're wondering, what did we replace the Ocean with? And we went used for 3 reasons. The first one is that we only buy new EVs when we're able to get significant savings in the form of the federal tax incentives. The second reason is we also wanted to stay pretty close to the trade-in value that we were going to get for the Fisker Ocean. Given that we've lost north of 30K in less than 7 months with this vehicle, the third reason is we wanted to find a vehicle that would best fit our family's needs. And that took us back to, why did we buy the Fisker Ocean? Well, we bought it to replace my wife's Model 3. And so this vehicle just needs to be my wife's daily driver. So what did we look at? We looked at the Cadillac Lyriq, an awesome, great looking EV, but it was more than we wanted to spend. That is not an EV that we can get used that would be close enough to the 28K trade-in value that we were able to get for our Fisker Ocean 1. That vehicle also seemed to be more of a fit for me than for my wife, and so we eliminated that one from consideration. The other one that we looked at was the Audi Q4 e-tron. Again, similar mid-size SUV form factor from a reliable brand, but I was scared away from that vehicle based on some owner reviews that I saw that specifically called out concerns with software and the technology within the vehicle. It also felt a little bit too ICE-like in that there were buttons everywhere. The steering wheel was littered with them, as was the dashboard. So we ended up going with the Volvo XC40 Recharge. It's not an emotional design or looking vehicle. It's not bad, don't get me wrong. We do love the way that it looks. It looks like a Volvo. It's somewhat of a timeless design, but it's not one that I would consider to be emotional. All right, so with all that said, allow me to introduce you to Ironheart. As you can see, we've got a little bit of a theme here with the names of our vehicles. I'm sitting in Valkyrie, and this is Ironheart, our 2023 Volvo XC40 Recharge in Silver Dawn with charcoal and fjord blue interior. I will do a complete review of Ironheart once time permits. All right, so that's it. The why, the how, the numbers, as well as the replacement. Thanks again for joining me on another video. Please like, subscribe, share the video, leave a comment or question below, and I'll look forward to joining you on the next one.